Admiral Jessica Hayes stood at the bridge of the ESS Prometheus, her weathered hands resting on the polished titanium rail as she watched the massive Zaxxar fleet emerge from hyperspace. The alien armada turned the stars into mere pinpricks as ship after ship materialized, their crystalline hulls refracting sunlight in waves of intimidating brilliance. 10,000 warships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built, arranged themselves in an attack formation that stretched from horizon to horizon. "Display count?" Hayes asked, her voice steady despite the overwhelming sight before her. 9,847 confirmed signatures. "Admiral," Lieutenant Park responded from his sensor station. "Still counting." He paused, swallowing hard. "Their smallest vessel is 3 times the size of the Prometheus." Hayes nodded, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Around her, the bridge crew maintained their composure, though she could sense their tension. 50 ships. That's all Earth had to offer against this invasion force. 50 vessels that, to the alien armada, must look like toys. "Admiral," Communications Officer Rodriguez called out, "we're receiving a transmission from what appears to be their flagship. They're broadcasting on all frequencies." "Put it through. Full display." The holographic screen materialized, revealing a being that looked like a cross between a mantis and a medieval knight. Its iridescent exoskeleton was adorned with what appeared to be military decorations, and its compound eyes reflected the light in fractals. "Humans of Earth," the alien's voice resonated through the bridge, translated in real time. "I am Supreme Admiral Kethrix of the Zaxxar Dominion. Your species has been judged and found wanting. Your technological inferiority is evident by your pathetic defensive force." The alien's mandibles clicked in what the translation software identified as amusement. "However, we are not without mercy. Surrender now, and we will ensure your extinction is swift and painless. Resist, and we will make an example of your world that will echo through the galaxy for millennia to come." Hayes studied the alien admiral, noting the subtle movements of its secondary appendages, signs of confidence bordering on arrogance. She glanced at her tactical display, where 50 green dots representing Earth's fleet seemed impossibly small against the red mass of the Zaxxar Armada. "Lieutenant Park," she said quietly, "what's the status of Project Echo?" "Quantum field is stable, Admiral. Dr. Reynolds reports all systems nominal." Hayes straightened her uniform and smoothed back her silver-streaked hair. "Officer Rodriguez, please access my personal files. Music selection. Flight of the Bumblebee. Prepare to broadcast on all frequencies." The bridge crew exchanged knowing looks as Rodriguez complied. Hayes stepped forward, making sure she was centered in the return transmission. "Supreme Admiral Kethrix," she began, her voice carrying the weight of humanity's response. "I am Admiral Jessica Hayes of the Earth Space Service. On behalf of humanity, I must respectfully decline your offer." She paused, allowing a small chuckle to escape. "However, since you've traveled so far to meet us, the least we can do is provide some entertainment." Kethrix's mandibles twitched in what might have been confusion. "You dare to mock the might of the Zaxxar Dominion. Your entire fleet is but a mouthful for our smallest battle group." "Size isn't everything, Admiral," Hayes replied, her smile growing wider. "Sometimes it's all about how you dance." She nodded to Rodriguez. "Let's show our guests how humans waltz." The opening notes of Flight of the Bumblebee burst across every frequency, drowning out Kethrix's response. Hayes turned to her crew, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, "Project Echo is now active. Remember your training, trust in the quantum field, and most importantly," she winked, "don't forget to enjoy the music. The galaxy's about to learn why you should never judge human technology by its cover." As the music built to its frenzied pace, the quantum field generators hidden within Earth's 50 ships hummed to life, preparing to show the Zaxxar Dominion exactly how humanity had learned to bend reality itself to the rhythm of classical music. Deep beneath the rusty Martian surface, Dr. Marcus Reynolds watched a wall of quantum data streams that would have given Einstein nightmares. His underground facility, nicknamed the Echo Chamber, hummed with the combined power of 1,000 fusion reactors, all dedicated to keeping 50 ships in a state of quantum uncertainty. "Dad." His 16-year-old daughter Emily called from her workstation, her fingers dancing across multiple holographic interfaces. "I'm seeing harmonic fluctuations in Grid 7. They're syncing with something." Marcus glanced at his daughter, still wondering if bringing her to Mars had been the right choice. But after her mother's death in the first Zaxthar scout ship attack, leaving her on Earth hadn't been an option. Besides, she understood quantum mechanics better than half the senior staff. "Show me," he said, moving to her station. The data streams she monitored showed clear wavelength patterns, pulsing in an oddly familiar rhythm. "Wait," Emily's eyes widened. "That's Flight of the Bumblebee. The quantum signatures, they're matching the music Admiral Hayes is broadcasting." Above them, through meters of Martian rock, the battle was about to begin. The facility's main screen showed the Zaxthar fleet arranging itself into what their intelligence identified as the Sphere of Annihilation formation. Marcus had to admit it looked impressive, like a massive sea urchin made of crystalline warships, all pointing their planet-killer weapons at Earth's tiny fleet. Dr. Reynolds called Dr. Sarah Wong, his chief quantum theorist. "The aliens are scanning our ships. Their sensors are going crazy trying to parse the quantum signatures." Marcus smiled. The Zaxthar were about to learn that humanity's primitive technology was anything but. Project Echo had started as a failed FTL experiment 3 years ago, an attempt to quantum tunnel large objects through space. Instead, they discovered something far more interesting: how to exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously. "Emily," he said, "can you isolate that musical synchronization pattern?" His daughter was already ahead of him, her augmented reality interface expanding to show complex waveforms. "The quantum field is naturally synchronizing with the music's tempo. It's like the ships want to dance." A warning klaxon blared. "Zaxthar energy spike," called out Lieutenant Chen from the military liaison station. "They're powering weapons." Marcus watched the alien fleet's sensor data with growing amusement. Their scans showed Earth's ships as technological anomalies, vessels that seemed to flicker in and out of normal spacetime like faulty holograms. He could almost imagine the confusion on their alien faces. "Emily," he said suddenly, "what if we intentionally match the quantum field oscillation to the music? Not just letting it happen naturally, but actively synchronizing it." His daughter's eyes lit up with that same spark of genius that had made her mother one of Earth's top physicists. Her fingers flew across the interface, making adjustments that would have taken the main quantum computer hours to calculate. "Got it," she announced. "Quantum field is now perfectly synced to Flight of the Bumblebee, sending new harmonics to the fleet. Now." On the main screen, the first shots from the Zaxthar fleet lanced out, beams of energy that could vaporize mountains. They passed straight through 3 human ships that had begun to flicker like mirages in a desert. "Sir," Lieutenant Chen's voice was filled with excitement. "The aliens' targeting systems are going haywire. They can't get a solid lock on any of our ships." Marcus watched as Emily continued to fine-tune the quantum field, her face showing the same intense concentration her mother had worn when solving seemingly impossible problems. The data streams showed their ships now existing in multiple quantum states, each movement perfectly timed to the maniac pace of Rimsky-Korsakov's masterpiece. Dr. Reynolds, his quantum computer's AI, announced, "Admiral Hayes is requesting Phase 1 activation. Shall I confirm readiness?" Marcus looked at his daughter, who gave him a confident thumbs up. He thought of his late wife, of Earth hanging vulnerable in space, and of humanity's future resting on 50 ships about to perform the universe's first quantum ballet. "Confirm readiness," he said. "Let's show them why humans are the only species crazy enough to weaponize classical music." Supreme Admiral Kithrix watched in disbelief as his first volley passed harmlessly through 3 human vessels. The ships seemed to dissolve like smoke, their forms becoming transparent before stabilizing again. His bridge crew erupted in premature celebration, mandibles clicking in what they assumed was victory. "Silence," he commanded, compound eyes fixed on the tactical display. Something wasn't right. His instincts, honed through 30 cycles of combat, screamed danger. "Supreme Admiral," his sensor officer's voice cracked with alarm. "The human vessels. There." The rest of the warning was drowned out as the 3 destroyed ships materialized inside the Zaxthar formation. Their weapons, previously dismissed as primitive by intelligence reports, opened fire from point-blank range. The crystalline hull of Kithrix's nearest destroyer shattered like glass, its atmosphere venting in a spectacular plume of frozen oxygen. Impossible. Kithrix's secondary appendages twitched violently. No species has mastered phase shift technology. But the evidence was undeniable. The human ships moved like nothing he'd ever seen, appearing and disappearing in perfect rhythm, to the strange music still broadcasting on all frequencies. Each disappearance was followed by a reappearance in a tactical position that should have been impossible to reach. On the ESS Prometheus, Admiral Hayes conducted her fleet like a symphony orchestra. Group 2, quantum shift to coordinates Delta 7. Group 3, prepare for temporal echo on my mark. Her orders were calm, almost musical in themselves, matching the frenetic pace of flight of the bumblebee. "Admiral," Lieutenant Park reported, grinning, "the Zaxthar are firing at our afterimages. Their targeting computers can't distinguish between our quantum states." Hayes allowed herself a small smile. "Well, we can't blame them. It's probably their first time at a dance." Deep under the Martian surface, Emily Reynolds made another breakthrough. "Dad, look at this." She highlighted a pattern in the quantum field fluctuations. When the ships phase out, they're leaving temporal echoes. If we amplify those. Marcus Reynolds studied the data and felt his breath catch. "Emily, you're a genius." Dr. Wong, help Emily modify the quantum field. Lieutenant Chen, inform Admiral Hayes we're about to give her ships some backup dancers. The Zaxthar fleet's formation had devolved into chaos. Their ships, designed to fight in tight, coordinated groups, now found their greatest strength turned against them. Every missed shot at a phasing human vessel risked hitting their own ships. Kithrix watched helplessly as 3 more destroyers fell to attacks from seemingly impossible angles. "Track them," he roared at his sensor crew. "How are they moving?" "Supreme Admiral," his science officer's voice trembled. "According to our sensors, they're existing in multiple locations simultaneously. It's as if their quantum superpositions made real." Back on the Prometheus, Hayes received the update from Mars. "Reynolds, you magnificent bastard," she whispered, then raised her voice. "All ships, prepare for Eco Protocol Alpha. Synchronize quantum shifts to my mark." She turned to Rodriguez. "Switch the music to double tempo." The battle space lit up like a quantum aurora as 50 human ships began leaving temporal echoes with each phase shift. The echoes, glowing with residual energy, created a mesmerizing display of ghost ships that moved in perfect harmony with the music. By the first egg, Kithrix breathed, watching his tactical display become a kaleidoscope of quantum signatures. His mighty armada, 10,000 ships strong, was being systematically dismantled by what appeared to be a human dance recital. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, 3 human vessels just quantized through our secondary shield layer. They're inside our flagship's defense envelope." Kithrix spun to the main viewport just in time to see the 3 ships phase into existence mere kilometers from his bridge. Their weapons powered up, and for a moment, he swore he could see the human crews grinning through their viewports. The last thing he heard before impact was Admiral Hayes's voice, broadcasted clear and amused. "And that, dear Admiral Kithrix, his what we call a pirouette. The Zaxthar battle computers weren't just failing, they were having existential crises. Designed to predict enemy movements using advanced probability algorithms, they now faced ships that existed in quantum superposition, effectively being everywhere and nowhere at once. One by one, they began shutting down, unable to process the mathematical impossibility of what they were witnessing. Status report. Hithrix demanded, nursing a wound from the recent attack that had nearly breached his bridge. 3 of his secondary appendages were missing, and his crystalline armor was cracked. Supreme Admiral. His tactical officer's voice had risen 2 octaves. Their vessels are multiplying. No, fragmenting. The computers can't. I can't. The officer's compound eyes started twitching rapidly, a sign of severe mental stress in their species. Through the chaos, Admiral Hayes's voice continued broadcasting, now interspersed with the crew's exhilarated whoops and cheers. All ships, execute Operation Firefly. Show them why humans invented square dancing. The ESS Prometheus led the maneuver, quantum shifting rapidly between 12 different positions in under 3 seconds. Each shift left a ghostly afterimage that could still fire weapons, creating a deadly dozen copies that existed simultaneously in quantum superposition. The rest of the human fleet followed suit, turning the battle space into a dazzling light show of quantum echoes and weapons fire. "You seeing this, Doc?" Hayes radioed to the Mars facility, her voice thick with satisfaction. "Your quantum field is performing better than we ever simulated." In the echo chamber, Marcus Reynolds wasn't just seeing it. He was watching history being written in quantum signatures. "Admiral, Emily's discovered something remarkable. The quantum echoes aren't just images. They're temporary quantum duplicates. Each one exists for approximately 2.3 seconds before collapsing." Temporary duplicates. Hayes leaned forward in her command chair. "You mean?" "Yes," Emily broke in, her excitement palpable even through the radio. "Every time you phase shift, you're briefly creating actual copies of your ships. The weapons fire from the echoes isn't an illusion. It's real." Kithrix watched in growing horror as his mighty armada was systematically dismantled by what appeared to be an impossible dance of multiplication. The single human ship would phase shift, leaving behind 3 or 4 combat-capable copies, only to shift again and create more. His fleet's defensive formations, designed to counter traditional attacks, were worse than useless against an enemy that could strike from within their own ranks. "Sir," his remaining sensor officer reported, "we're detecting a new pattern in their movement. The human vessels appear to be dancing. Their formations match ancient war dance patterns from their history." Indeed, the human fleet had begun executing complex maneuvers that looked suspiciously like a waltz in space. Ships quantum shifted in perfect 3/4 time, their echoes creating elaborate patterns that were as beautiful as they were deadly. Each movement ended with precision strikes against Zaxthar vessels that couldn't decide which version of their enemy to target. "Admiral Hayes," Marcus radioed, his voice urgent. "Emily's found a way to extend the echo duration by synchronizing with multiple musical harmonics. Sending the modifications now." Hayes grinned as her tactical display updated. "Lieutenant Park, distribute the new quantum frequencies to the fleet. Rodriguez, prepare to switch the music. Let's show them how humans do a proper ballroom blitz." The human crews, already riding high on adrenaline and the sheer joy of making the impossible possible, cheered as Blue Danube Waltz replaced Flight of the Bumblebee. The quantum echoes, now lasting nearly 10 seconds each, created vast, spinning formations of deadly grace. In the echo chamber, Emily worked furiously at her console, tears of joy streaming down her face. "Mom would have loved this," she whispered. "We're literally dancing between realities." Marcus squeezed her shoulder, watching as their quantum field turned 50 human ships into an army of ghostly dancers. "She does love it, sweetheart. She's watching 50 human ships make the laws of physics sit down and shut up." Above Mars, Admiral Hayes rose from her command chair, her silver hair catching the light of quantum shifts and weapons fire. All ships, prepare for Phase 4. Let's teach these aliens why humans named the waltz after a weapon of war. Zaxthar Grand Strategist Velox had never screamed in his 300 years of military service. He'd maintained composure during the Nebula Wars, stayed calm through the Hive Mind Rebellion, and hadn't flinched during the Gamma Sector collapse. But now, watching his battle screens, he screamed, "It's not possible." His crystalline exoskeleton cracked from stress as he watched the human vessel's phase, in and out of reality with impossible precision. Ships can't. They can't. His mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of impending psychological breakdown. Grand Strategist. His aide backed away nervously. The humans are implementing a new formation. It's. The aide's voice trailed off as the tactical display showed the human fleet arranging itself into what appeared to be a perfect three-dimensional representation of ancient Earth ballet choreography. Aboard the Prometheus, Admiral Hayes had just received the latest update from Mars. "So, Dr. Reynolds," she said, her eyes twinkling, "you're telling me we can now maintain multiple quantum states simultaneously. Not just echoes, but actual parallel existence." Credit goes to Emily. Marcus's voice carried parental pride. She found a way to stabilize the quantum field using musical harmonics as anchor points. Each ship can now maintain up to 5 simultaneous positions in spacetime, all fully combat capable. Hayes turned to her crew. "Ladies and gentlemen, you hear that? Time to show them a 5-dimensional waltz. Rodriguez, begin the Blue Danube, and this time, patch it through to all ship systems. Let's have our quantum drives dance to the music." The effect was immediate and spectacular. Each human vessel split into 5 distinct versions of itself, all existing simultaneously in different positions, all moving in perfect synchronization to Strauss's masterpiece. The space around Earth's fleet became a kaleidoscope of quantum possibilities made real. In the echo chamber, Emily worked feverishly at her console, tears of joy streaming down her face. "Dad, the quantum harmonics, they're creating stable time-space pockets around each ship. It's like we're conducting an orchestra of reality itself." Marcus watched in awe as his daughter's fingers danced across the holographic controls, adjusting quantum frequencies in perfect time with the music. On his main screen, the Zaxthar fleet was falling into complete disarray, their tightly packed formation becoming their own worst enemy. Supreme Admiral Kithrix's tactical officer was practically hysterical. "Their weapons fire is coming from 5 different dimensions simultaneously. Our shields can't. They weren't designed to." Incoming. The ESS Prometheus, now existing in 5 quantum states at once, executed what could only be described as a cosmic pirouette. Each version fired its main weapons in sequence, creating a spiral of destruction that cut through the Zaxthar fleet like a ballet dancer's ribbon through paper. Grand Strategist Velox watched his tactical display dissolve into chaos. His beloved battle algorithms, the product of millions of years of Zaxthar military evolution, were being reduced to useless equations by humans who had turned quantum mechanics into an art form. His last coherent action, before being led away by medical staff, was to transmit a single message to the Zaxthar High Command. They dance between realities. Gods help us all. "Admiral," Lieutenant Park reported, barely containing his excitement, "the enemy fleet is breaking formation. Their targeting systems can't handle our quantum signatures. They're firing blindly." Hayes nodded, watching as the massive alien armada began to fragment. "Send to all ships. Execute Formation Delta 9. Let's show them the grand finale of this movement." As the Blue Danube reached its crescendo, Earth's tiny fleet, now effectively multiplied by 5 through quantum superposition, began a synchronized attack pattern that looked more like a celestial ballet than a military operation. Each ship's quantum states moved in perfect harmony, creating geometric patterns of destruction that would have made both Einstein and Tchaikovsky proud. "Mom would have loved this," Emily whispered, watching the dance of quantum signatures on her screen. Marcus smiled, remembering his late wife's passion for both physics and music. She does love it, Emily. Somewhere in the quantum realm, she's watching her daughter teach the laws of physics how to dance. Above them, Admiral Hayes's voice rang out clear and triumphant. All ships, prepare for the final movement. Let's make this a performance the galaxy will never forget. Kithrix had seen empires fall and worlds burn, but never had he witnessed reality itself being torn apart by classical music. His flagship's bridge, once a marvel of crystalline efficiency, now displayed tactical holograms that looked more like abstract art than battle data. Each human vessel was leaving quantum trails that his best sensors interpreted as impossible probability clouds. Supreme Admiral, his last remaining senior officer reported, mandibles quivering. The humans. They're everywhere and nowhere. Our targeting computers are registering each of their ships in at least 5 positions simultaneously, with a 60% probability of all positions being real. A massive explosion rocked the flagship as one of the human quantum echoes, or was it the real ship, phased directly through their shields and executed a point-blank strike. Kithrix watched in horror as the quantum wake of the attack left ribbons of distorted space-time swirling in its path. In the Mars facility, Emily Reynolds made a discovery that caused her to literally jump from her chair. Dad, the quantum signatures. They're harmonizing with each other. Look at these patterns. Marcus rushed to her station, his eyes widening as he processed the data. The quantum fields of different ships were beginning to resonate with each other, creating cascading patterns of reality distortion that amplified their effects exponentially. Admiral Hayes, he radioed urgently. Emily's found something extraordinary. The quantum fields are sync. Already seeing it, Doctor, Hayes interrupted, her voice filled with wonder. The view from her bridge showed space itself seemingly dancing around her fleet. Each ship's quantum echoes were now leaving trails of aurora-like energy that twisted and braided with those of other vessels. Rodriguez, patch me through to all ships. She stood from her command chair, her silver hair reflecting the quantum-like show outside. Ladies and gentlemen of Earth's fleet, we're about to attempt something never before seen in the history of physics. Our quantum signatures are harmonizing. Let's give these aliens a show they'll tell their grandchildren about. Assuming they survive. New musical selection. Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. The opening notes of Da 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 Dum thundered across space, and the quantum dance began in earnest. 50 human ships, each existing in 5 quantum states, began moving in perfect synchronization with both the music and each other's quantum fields. The result was beyond spectacular. It was reality-bending. By the first egg, Kithrix whispered, watching his mighty armada come apart at the seams. Human vessels were now phasing through solid matter, as if it didn't exist, their quantum echoes creating patterns that hurt to look at directly. His fleet's formation, already in chaos, dissolved completely as ships began firing at phantoms only to hit their own allies. Back in the echo chamber, Emily worked furiously to maintain stability as the quantum resonance grew stronger. Dad, look. The harmonic patterns. They're creating stable quantum tunnels between ships. They can literally swap positions instantly. Marcus watched in awe as his daughter's fingers flew across the controls, conducting this symphony of quantum mechanics like a seasoned maestro. On his screens, the human fleet had begun executing maneuvers that defied not just physics, but common sense itself. Ships would disappear from one location and instantly appear in another, their quantum echoes creating bridges through reality that other vessels could follow. Dr. Reynolds, Hayes's voice came through, tight with excitement. Please tell me your daughter can sustain this effect for about 10 more minutes. Emily answered before her father could. Better than that, Admiral. I can amplify it. The quantum resonance is self-reinforcing now. Each ship's field is strengthening the others. We've basically created a quantum web across the entire battle space. Hayes smiled as she watched 3 Zaxthar dreadnoughts disappear in synchronized explosions, victims of attacks that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Then let's make these next 10 minutes count. All ships, execute Protocol Omega. Show them what happens when humanity decides to rewrite the laws of physics. As Beethoven's Fifth reached its first crescendo, the quantum web pulsed with power, and Earth's tiny fleet prepared to demonstrate why you should never underestimate a species that had turned quantum mechanics into a form of interpretive dance. As Beethoven's Fifth Symphony reached its iconic crescendo, Admiral Hayes stood at her command station, conducting both music and quantum warfare with the same fluid grace. Her fleet no longer appeared as mere ships. They had become living expressions of quantum possibility, each vessel trailing ribbons of reality distortion in their wake. All ships, execute final movement protocols, Hayes commanded, her voice carrying the weight of humanity's defiance. Let's show them our grand final. In the echo chamber, Emily's eyes widened as she saw the readings. Dad, the quantum resonance, it's reaching critical harmonics. The fields are multiplying exponentially. Marcus rushed to her station, his face illuminated by the cascading data streams. What he saw there made his scientific mind reel. The quantum fields weren't just resonating anymore. They were creating a cascading effect that turned each ship into a nexus of infinite probability. Admiral, he radioed, his voice urgent but controlled. Emily's calculations show we can push this further. Much further. But there's a catch. We'll be breaking several laws of physics that we didn't even know existed until today. Hayes' laughter rang across the command channel. Doctor, I think we left the laws of physics sobbing in a corner about 4 movements ago. Give me something spectacular. Emily's fingers danced across her console, synchronizing quantum harmonics with Beethoven's masterpiece, initiating quantum cascade in 3, 2, 1. The space around Earth's fleet erupted in a display that made Aurora Borealis look like a cheap light show. Each of the 50 human ships suddenly existed in not just 5, but dozens of quantum states simultaneously. The quantum echoes multiplied, creating fractal patterns of ships that stretched across multiple dimensions of space-time. On the Zaxthar flagship's bridge, Kithrix's compound eyes struggled to process what they were seeing. Where there had been 50 human vessels, there now appeared to be thousands, each one as real as the next, all moving in perfect synchronization to the alien music that continued to thunder across all frequencies. Supreme Admiral, his science officer whispered, they're quantum signatures. They're everywhere. The sensors can't. Reality itself is. The officer's exoskeleton cracked from stress as he watched probability itself being rewritten before his eyes. The ESS Prometheus led the attack, its quantum echoes arranging themselves in a spiral pattern that seemed to bore through the fabric of space-time. Each echo was fully realized, capable of both firing weapons and generating its own quantum duplicates. The effect cascaded through the fleet, turning 50 ships into an army that danced between the very strings of reality. Emily, Marcus called out, watching the quantum readings spike beyond anything they'd ever simulated. The harmonic resonance is approaching theoretical limits. But Emily was already ahead of him, her hands moving with inherited genius across the quantum controls. No, Dad, there are no theoretical limits anymore. We're writing new physics with every note. Above Mars, the battle had transformed into something beyond combat. The human fleet moved like a singular organism, their quantum echoes creating patterns that seemed to fold space itself into origami shapes of pure destruction. Where they passed, Zaxthar ships simply ceased to exist, their crystalline forms shattered by weapons fire coming from 1,000 quantum possibilities at once. Status report, Hayes called out, her voice steady despite the reality-bending chaos around her ship. Admiral, Lieutenant Park responded, his voice filled with awe. The enemy fleet. They're not just breaking formation anymore. They're running. The quantum cascade is causing complete systemic failures in their targeting systems. They can't tell what's real anymore. Hayes allowed herself a grim smile as she watched the mighty Zaxthar Armada dissolve into panic. Their formations, designed for conventional warfare, were worse than useless against an enemy that had turned quantum uncertainty into an art form. "Send to all ships," she commanded. "Execute final movement. Show them humanity's quantum requiem." As Beethoven's Fifth Symphony built toward its ultimate crescendo, Earth's fleet began a synchronized attack pattern that looked more like a divine dance than a military maneuver. Each ship, now existing in countless quantum states simultaneously, moved with perfect precision, their echoes weaving a web of destruction through reality itself. In the echo chamber, Emily whispered to her father, "Mom would be proud of this moment." Marcus nodded, watching as his daughter conducted the quantum apocalypse with the same passion her mother had brought to both physics and music. "She is proud, sweetheart. We've just taught the universe itself how to dance." The final movement of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony echoed across the battlefield as reality itself seemed to hold its breath. The mighty Zaxthar Armada, pride of an empire that spanned galaxies, had been reduced to a scattered collection of panicked ships trying to escape what they could no longer comprehend. "Status?" Admiral Hayes asked, her voice calm despite the quantum maelstrom surrounding her fleet. "Enemy fleet at 40% strength and falling." "Admiral," Lieutenant Park reported with barely contained glee. "Their retreat patterns are, well, they're just running in whatever direction they think we aren't. Though with our quantum echoes everywhere, they're not having much luck with that." The space around Earth's fleet had become a kaleidoscope of quantum possibilities made manifest. 50 human ships, each now existing in hundreds of quantum states simultaneously, performed their deadly ballet with mechanical precision and artistic grace. Their quantum echoes left trails of reality distortion that painted the cosmos in impossible colors. In the echo chamber beneath Mars' surface, Emily Reynolds monitored the quantum cascade with tears of joy streaming down her face. "Dad, look at this. The quantum harmonics. They're self-sustaining now. Each ship's field is amplifying the others exponentially. It's beautiful." Marcus watched his daughter conduct this symphony of physics-defying warfare, seeing so much of her mother in every gesture. "Admiral Hayes," he radioed, "Emily's found a way to synchronize all quantum fields simultaneously, if you're ready for the final." "Always wanted to conduct a symphony," Hayes replied with a smile in her voice. She stood from her command chair, her silver hair catching the light of 1,000 quantum reflections. "All ships, prepare for final synchronization. Let's show them humanity's grand final." Supreme Admiral Cathrix watched in horror as his tactical display dissolved into pure chaos. The human vessels weren't just moving through space anymore. They were bending it, folding it, making reality itself dance to their alien music. His mighty fleet, 10,000 ships strong at the battle's start, had been systematically dismantled by what appeared to be a performance art piece disguised as warfare. "Supreme Admiral," his last functioning sensor officer reported, voice trembling, "the humans. They're converging. All of them. All their quantum states at once." As the symphony reached its final crescendo, Earth's fleet began to move in perfect unison. Each ship, along with its hundreds of quantum echoes, flowed together in a dance that defied the laws of physics. They formed a massive spiraling pattern that seemed to pierce through multiple dimensions simultaneously. "Now, Emily," Marcus called out, "initiate final quantum convergence." Emily's fingers flew across her console one last time, synchronizing 50 ships and their countless quantum echoes into a single reality-bending moment. The result was beyond spectacular. It was transcendent. Every quantum echo, every possibility, every dimension they'd torn open during the battle, collapsed into a single point of space-time. For a brief moment, 50 human ships existed everywhere and nowhere, their weapons firing from every possible angle in the universe simultaneously. The remainder of the Zaxthar fleet never stood a chance. When reality stabilized, and the quantum echoes faded. Less than 100 alien ships remained from the original 10,000. The survivors hung motionless in space, their crews too stunned to even contemplate retreat. Hayes straightened her uniform and cleared her throat. "Rodriguez, patch me through to the enemy flagship." Cathrix's shattered image appeared on her screen, his crystalline armor cracked, and his compound eyes displaying what could only be described as shell-shock. "Supreme Admiral," Hayes said with a slight bow, "I believe this concludes tonight's performance. Earth thanks you for being such an attentive audience." What are you?" Cathrix whispered. Hayes smiled, the same smile that had started this dance of destruction. "Just humans, Admiral. A species that learned to waltz between the quantum strings of reality itself." She paused, letting her words sink in. "I trust you'll spread word of our performance." The alien admiral could only nod weakly as his surviving ships began their retreat. In the echo chamber, Emily leaned back in her chair, exhausted but triumphant. Did we just win a space battle with interpretive dance? Marcus hugged his daughter tight, thinking of his late wife and how proud she would be. "No, sweetheart. We just taught the universe that humanity doesn't just break the laws of physics. We make them dance to our tune." Above them, Admiral Hayes watched the retreat with satisfaction. All ships power down quantum drives. "Ladies and gentlemen, take a bow. Tonight, we made history and physics and probably several textbooks that will need serious revision.